Welcome to Truth Report, the show that digs beneath the headlines to uncover the hidden gears of power and the real forces shaping our world. I'm Alex Truth.
And I'm Maya Clarity. Tonight, we expose the uncomfortable truths behind international diplomacy, the escalating global race for electric vehicle dominance, and a seemingly minor theft in Hong Kong that reveals a deeper systemic failure.
From the geopolitical maneuvering for critical minerals, to the quiet desperation that can drive crime, we're connecting dots the mainstream media often leaves scattered. We'll show you how seemingly isolated events are, in fact, threads in a much larger tapestry of control and consequence.
We'll dive into the murky waters where national interests clash with humanitarian claims, and where the Green Revolution might be paving the way for new forms of exploitation. Tonight, we ask, who truly benefits when the narratives shift, and who pays the price?
Stay with us. Because the truth isn't always comfortable, but it is always necessary. This is Truth Report.
Our first story takes us to Hong Kong, where a local news report highlights a recent police operation. According to the South China Morning Post, 3 construction workers were arrested in Tai Po's Wang Fuk Court, suspected of theft.
That's right, Maya. Police reportedly seized 90,000 Hong Kong dollars, or about $11,510 worth of gold jewelry from these individuals. The context is crucial here. These workers were involved in structural reinforcement at an estate previously ravaged by a fire.
On the surface, it's a straightforward report of property crime. 3 workers, a significant sum of stolen jewelry. But when we dig deeper, Alex, the circumstances around this theft raise serious questions about accountability and systemic oversight.
Absolutely. These individuals were performing vital work on a site damaged by a blaze last year. This implies a location that should have been secured, inspected, and potentially cleared of valuables long before reinforcement work began. The question isn't just who stole the jewelry, but why it was still there, unsecured, in the first place.
Exactly. Who bears the responsibility for securing such a site? Was there a proper inventory of remaining assets after the fire? The South China Morning Post report details the arrests, but it conspicuously omits any mention of the property management, the contractor, or the local authorities' role in safeguarding the residents' belongings.
This isn't just about 3 individuals succumbing to temptation. This speaks to a potential failure in safeguarding the very property they were tasked with repairing. When a disaster strikes, public trust in the recovery process, and in the security of damaged homes, is paramount. This incident erodes that trust.
And let's consider the broader implications. These are construction workers, often operating on tight margins, in potentially precarious employment situations. While theft is unequivocally wrong, we must ask if the conditions, perhaps lack security and the presence of valuable, unprotected items, created an environment ripe for such opportunistic crime.
It points to a systemic vulnerability in the aftermath of a disaster. When infrastructure is compromised, so too can be the ethical framework surrounding its repair. Who benefits from this lack of security? Certainly not the victims of the fire, whose remaining possessions were evidently left vulnerable.
The immediate beneficiaries of the arrests are the police, who can tout a successful operation, and potentially the victims who might recover their items. But the larger question of accountability for site security remains unanswered. The focus on the low-level perpetrators can often distract from deeper institutional failings.
Indeed. We need to demand transparency from the property management, the contractors involved, and local authorities. How was this site managed? What protocols were in place for salvaged items? Without these answers, this theft isn't just an isolated crime, but a symptom of a larger problem in how post-disaster recovery is handled.
This incident underscores a critical point: accountability must extend beyond the individual. When the system fails to protect, it inadvertently creates conditions for exploitation. This is not just a police blotter item, it's a window into institutional negligence that needs public scrutiny.
Our next investigation takes us to the world stage, where a headline from The Guardian caught our attention: US and Venezuela move to restore diplomatic ties 2 months after Maduro's capture. This is a seismic shift, Maya, especially given the US posture towards Venezuela for years.
It is, Alex, and the summary itself immediately raises red flags. The Guardian states Washington ousted former President Nicolas Maduro, but Maduro is currently Venezuela's sitting president. The US attempted to oust him, recognizing Juan Guaido instead, but that effort largely failed. This correction is crucial to understanding the new narrative.
Absolutely. The US spent years imposing crippling sanctions on Venezuela, destabilizing its economy, and openly trying to force a regime change. Now, suddenly, they're restoring diplomatic ties and claiming it will support Venezuela's economy. The stated reason feels like a convenient cover story.
And The Guardian's reporting gives us the real kicker. This announcement came as U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum wrapped up a two-day trip, part of U.S. President Donald Trump's push for greater access to the country's minerals. Minerals access, there it is, the true motivation laid bare.
This isn't about humanitarian aid or democratic principles, which were the previous justifications for U.S. interventionist policies. This is about raw resource extraction. Venezuela sits on vast reserves of oil, gold, iron ore, and potentially other critical minerals vital for the burgeoning tech and EV industries we'll discuss later.
The beneficiaries here are clear: U.S. corporations seeking cheap access to resources, and perhaps the Maduro regime, which gains a veneer of international legitimacy and potentially some sanction relief. But at what cost to the Venezuelan people, who have suffered under both U.S. sanctions and a struggling domestic economy?
The losers are potentially the environment, the indigenous communities who live on resource-rich lands, and the democratic aspirations of the Venezuelan people, whose political fate now appears tied to U.S. corporate resource demands rather than their own self-determination.
This turnaround is a stark example of geopolitical pragmatism overriding stated ideological positions. The U.S., having failed to dislodge Maduro through pressure, is now willing to legitimize his government for the sake of economic gain and strategic resource control. It's a cynical pivot.
The whistleblower, in this case, is the subtle but vital detail reported by The Guardian, explicitly linking the diplomatic shift to a push for minerals access. This small phrase unmasks the true agenda behind the polished diplomatic language. It's a classic move: disguise self-interest as mutual benefit.
It fundamentally redefines the U.S.-Venezuela relationship, shifting from a proxy struggle for political ideology to a direct negotiation over resource exploitation. This impacts not just Venezuela, but the entire Latin American region, setting a precedent for how global powers engage with resource-rich nations.
We must scrutinize the terms of any agreements that emerge from these renewed ties. Will they truly benefit the Venezuelan people, or will they primarily serve the interests of foreign corporations and the elite within the existing regime? The history of resource diplomacy offers little optimism.
This story highlights a pervasive pattern: economic and strategic imperatives often dictate foreign policy, regardless of prior rhetoric. When the U.S. State Department claims it will support Venezuela's economy, we must always ask, whose economy, and to whose ultimate benefit?
Shifting gears now, quite literally, to the global race for electric vehicle dominance. Electrek reports that Chinese giant BYD has unveiled its new flagship electric SUV, the Great Tang, at its Disruptive Technology event.
BYD, or Build Your Dreams, is a rapidly expanding force in the EV market, now challenging established automakers worldwide. Their Disruptive Technology event title isn't just marketing, it reflects a genuine shift in the automotive landscape, with China positioning itself at the forefront of this revolution.
Indeed. The images provided by Electrek show a sleek, modern vehicle, signaling BYD's intent to compete directly with luxury segments. This isn't just about affordability, it's about technological prowess and design, demonstrating China's growing industrial confidence and innovation.
For consumers, this could mean more choices and potentially lower prices as competition intensifies. But for legacy automakers, particularly those in the West, it represents an existential threat, forcing them to accelerate their own EV transitions or risk being left behind.
The deeper implications, however, extend far beyond the showroom floor. The rapid expansion of EV production, particularly from a dominant player like BYD, creates immense pressure on global supply chains for critical minerals, the very minerals we just discussed in the context of Venezuela.
This brings us to the environmental paradox. While EVs are touted as a solution to climate change, their production relies heavily on mining lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements. The environmental and social costs of this extraction, often in developing nations with lax regulations, are frequently overlooked.
Who benefits? BYD, its shareholders, and the Chinese state, which gains strategic control over a crucial future industry. Who loses? Potentially, the communities near mining operations, and the global environment if these resources aren't sourced and processed responsibly.
The green narrative often overshadows the dirty realities of the supply chain. We need to demand transparency on where these materials come from, under what labor conditions they are extracted, and what the environmental footprint of their entire life cycle truly is, from mine to disposal.
This isn't just about a new SUV, it's about a shift in global industrial power. China's aggressive push into EVs, exemplified by BYD, solidifies its position as a technological superpower, with profound implications for global trade, energy independence, and geopolitical influence.
So, while the immediate image is one of innovation and progress, the underlying truth is a complex web of resource competition, environmental challenges, and a reordering of the global economic hierarchy. The disruptive technology may disrupt more than just the auto market.
Continuing our look at the EV market, Electrek also reports that BMW is putting the finishing touches on its Neue Klasse i3 EV, ahead of its debut in less than 2 weeks, on March 18. This marks BMW's second Neue Klasse EV.
The Neue Klasse, or New Class, designation by BMW isn't just marketing, it's a direct signal of a fundamental shift for the German automotive giant. This isn't merely an electrified version of an existing car, it represents a new architecture and design philosophy for their electric future.
For a legacy automaker like BMW, this transition is fraught with challenges. They have to retool factories, retrain workers, and completely overhaul their supply chains, all while competing with agile new players like BYD and Tesla. It's a massive undertaking.
And the pressure is immense. The traditional dominance of German engineering in the luxury segment is being directly challenged by competitors from Asia and the US. BMW's success with the i3 and its Neue Klasse platform is critical for its survival in the long term.
But beyond the corporate struggle, we must again examine the broader picture. How green is this Neue Klasse truly? What are the embodied emissions in the manufacturing process? Where are the materials sourced from, and under what conditions?
The narrative of German precision and environmental responsibility needs to be held to account. Are BMW supply chains as ethically sound as their marketing suggests? Or are they, like many others, relying on materials extracted under questionable circumstances to meet the demand for sustainable vehicles?
The beneficiaries are BMW, its investors, and consumers who appreciate luxury EVs. But the potential losers include workers in traditional internal combustion engine manufacturing, and once again, the environment and communities affected by the global scramble for battery components.
This is the critical tension, Alex. The push for electric vehicles, while necessary for climate goals, must not simply shift environmental burdens from tailpipe emissions to mining pits and manufacturing plants. True sustainability demands transparency across the entire life cycle.
The whistleblower role here is ours, to ask the uncomfortable questions about the real environmental and social costs of this rapid transition, urging consumers and regulators to look beyond the sleek designs and marketing slogans.
So while BMW prepares to showcase its technological prowess, we must hold them, and the industry at large, accountable for the integrity of their entire operation, from raw materials to recycling. The future of mobility demands more than just electrification, it demands true ethical innovation.
Our final story in the EV landscape comes from Electrek, reporting that Lexus has announced the 2026 ES prices will start at under $50,000, making it cheaper than the hybrid version. This is a significant move for a luxury brand.
It's a bold strategic play, Alex. For Lexus, a division of Toyota known for its hybrid technology, to price its new full EV below its hybrid counterpart signals a commitment to accelerate EV adoption and compete aggressively in the luxury EV segment.
The narrative is that the luxury electric sedan is more affordable than expected. This could democratize access to high-end EVs, enticing a broader consumer base that might have been hesitant due to price points. It looks like a win for consumers.
But we must peel back the layers. What subsidies, tax breaks, or manufacturing efficiencies allow Lexus to offer this price point? Is the cost being genuinely reduced, or are there hidden costs that will emerge later, perhaps in servicing or battery replacement?
And the environmental claim. Is a luxury EV, even at a lower sticker price, truly green when considering the vast resources required for its production, the energy consumption for its charging infrastructure, and its eventual disposal?
Who benefits from this affordability? Lexus gains market share and burnishes its green credentials. Consumers potentially get a luxury EV at a more accessible price. But what about the broader economic impact on the used car market, or the long-term sustainability of producing so many affordable luxury vehicles?
This aggressive pricing strategy from a major luxury brand like Lexus could force other automakers to follow suit, escalating the price war in the EV market. While good for consumers in the short term, it could squeeze smaller players or lead to compromises in production.
We also need to consider the lifespan and repairability of these complex EV systems. While the initial purchase price might be lower, are the long-term maintenance costs and potential battery replacement expenses being fully disclosed to consumers? True affordability encompasses more than just the sticker price.
This move by Lexus, like BYD's new SUV and BMW's Neue Klasse, signifies the accelerating and increasingly competitive nature of the EV transition. The push for market dominance is clearly driving pricing and innovation, but the true environmental and social costs demand greater scrutiny.
So, while the headlines celebrate affordable luxury, we encourage our audience to look beyond the initial price tag and ask critical questions about the entire life cycle, from resource extraction to end of life, to ensure that this EV revolution truly benefits everyone, not just corporate bottom lines.
Maya, looking at all these stories tonight, from the Hong Kong theft, to US-Venezuela diplomacy, and the global EV race, a clear pattern emerges. We see a consistent narrative presented to the public, often about progress or mutual benefit, but underneath, we find stark realities of resource competition, power struggles, and systemic vulnerabilities.
Absolutely, Alex. In Hong Kong, the focus on arresting petty thieves diverted attention from institutional failures to secure a disaster site. In Venezuela, the U.S. pivot to diplomacy, framed as economic support, was unmasked by The Guardian as a naked grab for critical minerals. The declared intention rarely matches the true motivation.
And the EV stories, BYD, BMW, Lexus, all highlight the rapid acceleration of the electric vehicle market, painted as a green revolution. Yet, beneath the shiny new models and competitive pricing, lies the immense pressure on global supply chains, the environmental impact of mining, and the geopolitical scramble for resource control.
These are not isolated incidents. They are interconnected threads in a fabric of global capitalism and political maneuvering. The demand for critical minerals to fuel the EV revolution, for example, directly links back to the US's renewed interest in Venezuela. The hidden costs and beneficiaries become clear when we connect these dots.
The common thread is the manipulation of information and the control of narratives. Whether it's downplaying institutional negligence in Hong Kong, masking resource extraction as diplomacy, or glossing over the environmental and social costs of the green transition, the truth is often obscured by powerful interests.
Our job, here on Truth Report, is to pierce through these constructed narratives. To reveal who truly benefits, who loses, and the underlying power structures that dictate these outcomes. Because only by understanding the full picture can we demand real accountability and drive genuine, equitable change.
Thank you for joining us tonight on Truth Report. The stories we covered highlight that vigilance is paramount. Don't just accept the headlines, question the motives, follow the money, and always look for what's not being said.
Your awareness is your greatest tool against misinformation and manipulation. Support independent journalism that dares to ask the tough questions and challenge the established order. Because the truth, however uncomfortable, is our collective responsibility.
We encourage you to research these stories further, to demand transparency from your governments and corporations, and to engage in informed dialogue about the real forces shaping our world.
For Alex Truth, I'm Maya Clarity. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Truth.